Ladies and gentlemen, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment in the history of professional athletics, a moment where the tectonic plates of commerce, culture, and competition are shifting beneath our very feet. As we gaze upon the current landscape of the Women's National Basketball Association, we are presented with a duality so stark, so jarring, that it demands a rigorous and unflinching analysis. On one side of the aisle, we witness the chaotic theatrics of labor negotiations, a spectacle characterized by the juvenile deployment of inflatable rats in front of office buildings, passive-aggressive social media campaigns, and a general air of performative grievance. It is a narrative of stagnation, of conflict, and of a desperate clawing for relevance through controversy. However, if we turn our eyes away from the nonsense, as the rational observer is compelled to do, and direct our attention toward the heartland of America, we find a narrative of a fundamentally different character. We find the Indiana Fever. While the union engages in theatrics, the Fever organization is engaging in empire building. Specifically, we must dissect the recent, profoundly illuminating interview given by Sarah Myer, the chief of staff for the Indiana Fever. Her commentary does not merely provide a peek behind the curtain, it offers a devastating empirical rebuttal to the prevailing cynicism surrounding the league's growth. It serves as a testament to the singular, transformative power of one individual, Caitlin Clark. As we wait with bated breath, hoping that a deal can be reached to salvage the 2026 WNBA season, it is imperative that we understand why the stakes are so monumentally high. It is not because of the inflatable rats. It is because of what Sarah Myer has revealed about the ground reality in Indianapolis. The owners, it appears, are looking to move things right along, driven by the tangible business metrics that are finally, after decades of hope and speculation, materializing into cold, hard cash. And the catalyst for this metamorphosis is not a collective effort, it is a singular phenomenon. Let us begin with the personal, for it is often in the personal reaction that we find the truest measure of a public event. Sarah Myer, a high-ranking executive within the organization, recounted the precise moment she received the intelligence that Caitlin Clark would officially be joining the Indiana Fever roster. This was not a standard business call. This was not a routine notification of a draft selection. Ms. Myer admitted, with a candor that underscores the gravity of the situation, that she was driving her vehicle when the news broke. Her reaction? She had to physically pull her car over to the side of the road. She was, in her own words, freaking out. Now, I ask you to pause and consider the implications of that admission. We are speaking of a seasoned professional, an individual accustomed to the high-stakes environment of professional sports management. Yet the mere knowledge that Caitlin Clark was coming to town was a piece of information so heavy, so laden with destiny and economic potential, that it rendered the safe operation of a motor vehicle impossible. She had to stop. She had to compose herself. Why? Because she knew, in that instant, that the world had changed. She knew that the Indiana Fever was no longer just a basketball team. It was about to become the epicenter of a global movement. If one receives news of a standard all-star acquisition, one might smile and keep driving. When one receives news of an economic supernova, one pulls over. That singular visceral reaction encapsulates the before and after of this entire league. Ms. Myer's subsequent revelations regarding the fan response serve to quantify this emotional reaction with staggering statistical evidence. We have heard the anecdotes, but the data she provided is nothing short of revolutionary. She spoke of the lines for the fan shop, mere cues to purchase merchandise, beginning to form hours before tip-off. But it is the geographic diversity of this patronage that truly exposes the hollowness of the incremental growth narrative often peddled by the union. According to Myer, in the past year alone, the Indiana Fever have hosted attendees from all 50 of the United States. That alone would be a remarkable feat of domestic marketing. But she went further. She revealed that fans traveled to Indianapolis from 44 distinct countries. Let that figure resonate in the halls of your mind for a moment. 44 countries. We are no longer discussing a niche domestic league struggling for viewership in its own local markets. We are witnessing the crystallization of a global export. This is the global star power that the WNBA has desperately craved since its inception, yet which the current labor negotiators seem intent on jeopardizing with their stalling tactics and public relations stunts. To have citizens from nearly a quarter of the world's nations making a pilgrimage to the American Midwest to witness a basketball game is a phenomenon that defies conventional sports business logic. It speaks to a magnetism that transcends borders, languages, and cultures. This brings us to the concept that has now entered the lexicon of academia and economics alike: Clarkonomics. This is not a buzzword invented by excitable fans. It is a reality being studied by institutions of higher learning. Sarah Myer confirmed that colleges and universities are currently conducting formal studies on the economic impact Caitlin Clark has had on the city of Indianapolis and the state of Indiana. When the economics departments of major universities are mobilizing to quantify your presence, you have transcended the realm of athlete and entered the realm of industry. The impact is visible to the naked eye. Downtown businesses are flourishing. The hospitality sector is booming. The fever, and by extension the city, are suddenly attracting high-profile events like all-star games that previously would have bypassed them. Everyone attached to this gravitational pull is winning. Everyone is making money. The narrative that Caitlin Clark changed the economy of Indiana is not hyperbole. It is a demonstrable economic fact. And this stands in stark contrast to the efforts of those who attempt to manufacture rivalries or compare other rookies to her impact. With all due respect to the other talents in the league, including names like Angel Reese, the comparison is intellectually dishonest. We are talking about a player who shifts the GDP of a metropolitan area. That is a singular distinction. Ms. Myer elaborated on this transformation with a perspective that is deeply personal, yet indicative of the broader shift. As a former athlete herself, a swimmer who grew up admiring basketball and softball, she recalled attending Cleveland Rockers games in her youth. She noted, with the blunt honesty that history requires, that those stadiums were not full. They were, in fact, largely empty vessels of unrealized potential. Contrast that memory with the current reality she oversees. Stadiums packed to the rafters with young boys and girls, a generation captivated by the spectacle of competence and brilliance. It is, to use her descriptor, wild. It is a cultural renaissance. Furthermore, we must address the symbiotic relationship between the star and the community. There is often a fear that a supernova of this magnitude will remain aloof, detached from the locale that hosts them. Yet, Myer confirms that Clark has integrated herself into the fabric of Indiana sports culture with a seamless grace that belies her youth. She is not hiding in a penthouse. She is seen at the Big Ten football championship games. She is a fixture at Butler University basketball contests. She is present, she is accessible, and consider the deference she has shown. Caitlin Clark is a known vocal supporter of the Kansas City Chiefs. She does not hide this allegiance. Yet the Indianapolis Colts, the local NFL franchise, still roll out the red carpet for her. Why? Because when you change the basketball reality of a state like Indiana, a state where basketball is less a sport and more a civic religion, you command a level of deference that transcends traditional intercity rivalries. She has turned the city up in a way that is unprecedented. She has become the adopted daughter of the state, and in return, the state has bent its knee to her influence. This leads us to a crucial, often contentious conversation regarding the hierarchy of stardom. There are those in the media, and certainly within the player population, who wish to debate the face of the league. They will throw out names like Aja Wilson or Nafisa Collier, citing defensive metrics or tenure. But let us be unequivocally clear, utilizing the evidence before us. Caitlin Clark is the face of the game. And I do not mean she is merely the face of the WNBA. I do not mean she is merely the face of women's basketball. She is quite arguably the face of basketball, period. When one surveys the landscape of the sport in its totality, looking for figures who command this specific type of universal cross-demographic attention, the list is vanishingly small. You are looking at LeBron James. You are looking at Stephen Curry. Beyond that, who is eclipsing her? Shai Gilgeous-Alexander? Luka Doncic? With all due respect to their immense talents and MVP calibers, they do not occupy the cultural zeitgeist in the manner that Clark does. She is standing at the summit of the sport, regardless of gender. She is the sun around which the rest of the basketball universe is currently orbiting. To argue otherwise is to deny the reality of the 44 countries statistic. The interview with Sarah Myer also shed light on the structural evolution occurring within the franchise, a physical manifestation of the revenue being generated. We learned that the Fever are constructing a dedicated practice facility directly across the street from their field house. This facility is slated to open in the spring of 2027, just in time for the season following the next. Now we must ask the cynical, necessary question: would this be happening without the arrival of the number 22? Would the ownership be pouring millions into concrete and steel for a dedicated facility if they were still operating in the pre-Clark era? The answer, almost certainly, is no. For years, the Fever, like many WNBA teams, operated in the shadow of their NBA counterparts. They were, to use a harsh but accurate term, mooching and leeching around the Indiana Pacers facilities. They were secondary tenants existing on the margins of professional basketball infrastructure. Now, they are building their own castle. This construction project is the ultimate refutation of the players' union's rhetoric. The players claim the owners are hoarding wealth, yet here we see the owners reinvesting the Clark revenue directly into the infrastructure that the players have demanded for years. Caitlin Clark brought the money, and the organization is building the facility. It is a cause and effect relationship that seems to escape the comprehension of those currently placing inflatable rats on sidewalks. Ms. Myer also touched upon the immense pressure that rests on Clark's shoulders, noting with awe how she handles speaking engagements and the global gaze. Being the focal point of the entire sporting world at such a young age is a burden that would crush most individuals. Yet she manages it. She shows up, and because she shows up, the city grows. The franchise grows, the league grows. It is a testament to her character that she can carry the weight of an entire economic ecosystem on her back and still perform. However, even amidst this celebration of competence and growth, we must maintain a critical, perhaps even suspicious eye on the broader management structure of the Indiana Fever. While Sarah Myer presents herself as a competent, enthusiastic, and frankly cool steward of this new era, someone who understands the magnitude of what is happening, I remain deeply skeptical of the surrounding cast of characters. I speak specifically of Amber Cox and Kelly Krauskopf. My gaze remains fixed upon them with a significant degree of distrust. Why do I harbor this skepticism? Because these are the architects responsible for the introduction of Stephanie White. I have articulated this before, and I will articulate it again. The maneuvering that brought Stephanie White into the fold feels disruptive. It feels like a variable introduced to alter a chemistry that was already beginning to bubble. It is as if Caitlin Clark is a force of nature that cannot be stopped, yet the management seems intent on tinkering with the formula. I do not trust the motivations of Cox and Krauskopf. I feel as though there was a coordinated effort, a get-down, if you will, to bring White in and change the trajectory or the culture in a way that may not be entirely beneficial to the organic growth we were witnessing. Until proven otherwise, I view these executive decisions with a side eye. They are responsible for this coaching change, and therefore they bear the ultimate responsibility for whatever disruption or success follows. Sarah Myer may be the friendly face offering us these incredible statistics, but Cox and Krauskopf are pulling the levers behind the scenes. One can only hope that the sheer momentum of Caitlin Clark, the momentum that pulls cars over on the freeway and brings fans from 44 countries, is enough to overcome any administrative meddling or misguided attempts to fix what isn't broken. The contrast here is what is most striking. On one hand, you have Sarah Myer discussing a future that is bright, global, and lucrative. She paints a picture of a franchise that is evolving into a powerhouse, building physical monuments to its success in the form of new facilities. On the other hand, you have the WNBA engaging in social media wars and street theater. The disconnect is palpable. The Fever are proving that the business model works when you have the product. The union seems stuck in a mindset of grievance, unable to pivot to the reality of prosperity that is staring them in the face. This is the reality of the WNBA in this moment. It is a league defined by the tension between its immense potential and its self-inflicted wounds. The potential is personified by Caitlin Clark and quantified by the data from Indiana. The wounds are inflicted by a labor negotiation strategy that seems divorced from these economic realities. When Sarah Myer says Clarkonomics is real, she isn't just using a catchy phrase. She is describing the lifeblood of the modern WNBA. The fact that universities are studying it should tell the players everything they need to know about where their leverage actually comes from. It does not come from inflatable rats. It comes from the number 22 jersey. It comes from the fans in the 44 countries who are watching, waiting, and spending. So, as we look toward the 2026 season, we must hope that the vision Sarah Myer described is the one that prevails. We must hope that the new practice facility opening in the spring of 2027 becomes a symbol of a new era of cooperation and prosperity rather than a monument to what could have been. The owners are moving. The money is on the table. The infrastructure is rising from the ground. The only question that remains is whether the rest of the league, and specifically the players' leadership, can catch up to the reality that Indiana is already living. The Fever are no longer the little sister franchise. They are the engine. They are the blueprint. And as Sarah Myer's interview made abundantly clear, they are just getting started. The question is no longer, will the WNBA succeed? The question is, will the WNBA get out of its own way long enough to let Caitlin Clark lead it to the promised land? We are watching history unfold. We are watching a single player turn a local pastime into a global obsession. And we are watching the messy, complicated, and often frustrating business of trying to monetize that obsession. It is a fascinating spectacle, one that requires us to look past the noise and focus on the signal. And the signal coming from Indianapolis is louder than any podcast, any tweet, or any inflatable rat. It is the sound of a car pulling over to the side of the road because the driver knows that nothing will ever be the same again. Tell me what you truly think. Do the revelations about the global reach, the 44 countries, the 50 states, change your perspective on the financial viability of the league? Do you believe that the new practice facility is the ultimate proof that the owners are willing to invest when the revenue is there? Or do you share my skepticism regarding the management trio of Cox, Krauskopf, and White, despite the positive news from Sarah Myer? Are they the fly in the ointment of this perfect scenario? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Engage with this reality. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, and hit that bell notification. We will continue to track this story, dissecting the truth from the noise because the vision must be kept. The reality of what is happening in Indiana cannot be ignored, and we will be here to chronicle every step of this unprecedented journey. We are not playing games. We are witnessing the evolution of a sport.